Hello, coaches, and welcome to this edition of Give and Go Live. I'm joined by my colleague Ian Barker. Hi, Ian. How are you?
Good, David. Thank you.
Excellent. So today's session is 4 versus 4 versus 4 quick passing combinations. And this is an activity that involves 3 teams, each with 4 players. 2 teams start in the middle and 1 team starts on the periphery. And the attacking objective is for the team in possession to combine for 3 or more passes, and for the team out of possession inside the area to try and win the ball and then possess the ball in a similar way. And let's talk about some of the methods.
Sure. So as listed down there in the lower left, one of the challenges in this activity is that inside the area, the team in possession, in this case the yellows, are always looking to move and be in available support and maintain good angles as we would in any normal possession game. But additionally, the players on the outside should be encouraged to be continually engaged and moving so as to be able to support the yellows based on how they're doing. So there's a ton of movement opportunity to remind the players about and to create those angles. Also, as from a methodological point of view, decide early on what type of dynamic you want in terms of the intensity inside the activity, and then when subsequent transition opportunities happen for the whites coming in. I would advocate go very big to start with, give everybody an opportunity to be successful in possession, and then as you've bedded the activity in, make the space smaller and smaller to increase the speed of play.
Ian, we have a question from Nick. Why use this activity?
Well, I certainly think that anytime we can get the players into sort of a possession activity, relatively speaking, even numbers, because it's 4 on 4 on the inside. So you're working on techniques of passing and receiving, but then you're also working on something a little bit more towards the tactical decisions of when to pass, who to pass to, where to pass to. So I think for a youth player, this is good fundamental content.
Thanks, Ian. So let's move on to the second diagram, and the sequence continues. So if you remember, on the last diagram, we had a pass to the yellow attacker. On receiving that pass, the third or fourth pass, depending on your conditions, that player then must pass to the outside to one of the 4 target players. In this situation, the player has passed the ball to a white target player, and then that white target player has initiated the next attack. So the players on the outside now move inside the area, and those players are the attackers. So the whites become the attackers. The yellow team that successfully made the 3 or 4 passes now become the defenders. So these 4 players now must try to win the ball back. And the red team that were defending, that lost the point, now move out, and they become the 4 peripheral players. So Ian, let's talk about some of the methods here.
Sure. So what we see here is that this player has completed the pass to the outside and has scored the point. So at this point, all 3 teams are in a transition moment. The most fundamental is that the red team is heading out of the grid to be the outside players. So they have to transition. Obviously now the yellows, having scored a point, will become the defensive team. But most importantly is the reaction of the whites getting into the field of play to become the possession team and enjoy this opportunity. So I would be looking initially at the speed of decisions of the whites getting into the play. And what is really nice about this particular setup and this rotation of players after a goal is scored or a point is scored is that if you look at the whites, they have great spacing. And of course, the yellows are trying to make the field small because they're the defensive team, but the whites' beginning position makes the field big. And so I think that's a really nice part of this activity. You get some natural shape right off of the transition moment.
Thanks, Ian. And this is a question from Eli. How can we make this activity more challenging?
Great question. The challenge is primarily for the 4 in possession on the inside. So number 1 would be to make the space smaller. Number 2 could be add some touch conditions to the 4 in possession. And then we could also stipulate the manner by which the white team join in when it's their turn. So here we've allowed this player to dribble in, but we might say that you must pass it in initially when you change over. So there's a number of variables to manipulate.
And we'll move to our final diagram, the third in the sequence. And just to recap, we made the pass, the white team made the pass along the outside. And here we show the yellow team now winning back possession. So previously they were the attackers. They then transitioned into the defenders, and they've now won possession back. So they've become attackers again, made 3 consecutive passes, and now passed out again to one of the target players, this time the red team. And the red team, of course, now will enter into the area. So Ian, final diagram, and let's talk about the methods here.
Yeah, so to get the activity going, you might determine that, for example, here on a turnover, this first pass is a free pass, just to establish some modicum of possession and flow. You can manipulate the conditions by which the players can come in and out. So in this particular example, every one of the attacking players has had a touch prior to scoring, but you could allow them to score immediately, or you could put in more touch conditions. And then there are other types of things we might suggest. So we might suggest that before we can get a score, we have to perform a give and go or some sort of combination. So we can manipulate variables again to increase the challenge or potentially decrease the challenge based on the competence of our players.
Ian, we have time for one more question. This is from Lauren, and Lauren asks, why is this activity 360 degrees as opposed to a north-south orientation?
That's a great question. I certainly, by the end of training, we want to have game-like situations where we sort of have a goal at one end and one at the other end, and the game is essentially a north-south game. However, for the training of youth players, sometimes putting them into this 360 environment challenges them technically. It's a great opportunity for central midfielders who deal in that 360-degree environment, and it's certainly a high-paced, game-like activity. By the end of training, of course, it will become more game-like when we do go north and south.
Well, thanks very much, Ian, for your time again today. Just to remind coaches that they can engage with us over a variety of social media platforms. And if you're participating this through the webinar functionality of Webinar Jam, you can download the activities from this session on the right-hand side, answer the poll, and if you're interested in the manual, then that is also available on the right-hand side. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us, and look forward to the next time we go to Give and Go.